Hello everyone, this is Jennifer Tomon, the Secondary Education Licensure Advisor in the UNCG School of Education Student Advising Center. This orientation will be for those interested in secondary or high school teaching licensure. In this orientation, we'll review the requirements for admission into teacher education, as well as the requirements for the coursework and internships required to receive licensure to teach in North Carolina. The following two slides list the majors at UNCG in which secondary teacher education licensure may be obtained. These majors fall under the Secondary Teacher Education Program, also referred to as STEP within the School of Education. This means that students take coursework within the major in their various departments, but also take courses required for licensure within the School of Education. These licensure courses are included as part of a concentration within each of the following majors. Those majors listed below are Classical Studies with the licensure area in Latin, English, French, which is a K-12 license, Mathematics, which may be pursued through various majors within the Mathematics department, Spanish, which is a K-12 license, Science, and Social Studies. Science and Social Studies are both comprehensive licenses, meaning that you don't receive a license in one particular area, but instead a variety of different areas that fall under that particular category. So for example, comprehensive science licensure may be obtained through a degree in biology, chemistry, physics, or integrated science, which is a special program in liberal studies. For the comprehensive science license, students within those majors will also take classes within the other areas of science in order to receive that comprehensive science license. Likewise, in social studies licensure may be obtained through anthropology, economics, geography, history, political science, psychology, or sociology. However, it's a comprehensive social studies license, meaning that all of these subject areas take courses in history as well as some of these other areas. So what exactly is STEP? The Secondary Teacher Education Program is designed for people who are seeking high school teaching licensure in the aforementioned content areas. As part of this program, students take a required set of licensure courses that begin in the fall of junior year and run through the spring of the senior year. Thus, that's 4 semesters of specific courses that are laid out in a particular sequence, which we will review later. As part of this internship and course sequence, you will have at least 100 hours of clinical experience prior to student teaching. That means beginning your first internship in the fall of junior year and culminating with full-time student teaching in the spring of your senior year. As part of these internships, you will be working closely with the faculty within the UNCG School of Education, as well as the on-site teacher educators, or OSTEs, who are the teachers in the field with whom you work. Even though you will take courses within the STEP program in the UNCG School of Education, you are not receiving an education degree. Instead, you are receiving your degree either from the College of Arts and Sciences, which would be the case for most of those majors, or the Bryan School of Business if you're an economics major. That means you are receiving your degree in your content area, but you are receiving the requirements for licensure within the UNCG School. The following are the goals of the Secondary Teacher Education Program. The philosophy of STEP at UNCG is for students to graduate as both experts in their content area and also having the skills necessary to be an effective high school teacher. What this means is being balanced in both content expertise and pedagogy. In order to obtain this level of expertise, students major in a particular content area that requires at least 30 hours of coursework in that area. Additionally, students take at least 27 hours of licensure courses in the School of Education. Thus, when students graduate, they have had a balanced perspective of both content and pedagogy. This may mean that for the first couple years, you won't feel like much of an education student. Instead, you will be focusing on your general education requirements and your major requirements. However, in your final 2 years, you will be bringing your knowledge from the general education courses and your major courses into your licensure courses and vice versa in order to do more connection between content and pedagogy. In order to begin your journey toward teacher licensure in North Carolina, you must be formally admitted into the teacher education program at UNCG. This typically occurs during the spring or second semester of the sophomore year. If you're a transfer junior, you will probably apply during your first semester on campus. In order to apply, you will complete a fairly basic application for admission, which can be obtained online through the link provided or from the Teachers Academy office. You can turn in this application whether or not you have completed all of the requirements for admission. If you wait until you complete all of the requirements, then you will immediately go into the process of being admitted. If you turn it in while some requirements are incomplete, such as waiting for your Praxis 1 exam scores to come back, then the Teachers Academy office will hold your file as incomplete until you have updated all necessary materials. On your application, there is a section that says to be completed by the Teachers Academy. This requires a department signature, but this will be obtained by the Teachers Academy, so this is not something you need to worry about obtaining before you submit your application. In order to be admitted, in addition to submitting an application, you will also have to take or be exempt from the Praxis 1 exam. The Praxis 1 exam is a national exam designed for people wanting to enter the teaching profession to ensure that they have the basic skills in reading, writing, and math necessary to be a teacher. Because this exam is very similar to the SAT, having both a reading and a writing section as well as a math section, you can be exempt from this Praxis 1 exam based on your SAT or ACT scores. In order to be exempt, you must have scored an 1100 or better on your verbal and math sections of the SAT, so that's a combined score of 1100 on verbal and math, or a 24 or better on the ACT composite. The SAT score only looks at verbal and math and not the writing score. So if you took that version of the SAT, you'll just want to look at your verbal and math scores and not the writing score to see if you have that 1100 or better. And that's to keep things consistent, since not everyone that applies for admission would have taken the version with the writing score. If you do have that 1100 or better on the verbal and math, or the 24 or better on the ACT composite, then you are exempt from all parts of the Praxis 1. If you did not have those totals, but you had a 550 or better on your verbal section of the SAT, or a 24 or better on the English ACT, then you would be exempt from the Praxis 1 reading and the Praxis 1 writing. However, you would have to take the Praxis 1 math and score a 173 or better. If you did better on the math, scoring a 550 or better on the math SAT, or a 24 or better on the math ACT, then you would be exempt from the math portion of the Praxis 1, but you would have to take the Praxis 1 reading with a 176 or better, and the Praxis 1 writing and score a 173 or better. If you don't fall into any of those categories, then you must take the Praxis 1 reading, the Praxis 1 writing, and the Praxis 1 math, and score a combined score of 522 on the exam. This means that you don't have to worry so much about the individual scores on each of those sections. Instead, you just have to get that combined total of 522. Thus, if you're stronger, say for example in reading and writing, but struggle a little more in math, as long as your reading and writing scores were high enough to boost that math and that whole total to 522 or better, then you would pass the Praxis 1 exam. In order to register for the Praxis 1 exam, you go online to do that. We also have some resources within the School of Education, so you'll want to schedule an appointment with me within the Advising Center and or go to the Teachers Academy and request information on the Praxis 1. In addition to completion of the application and the Praxis 1 requirement, you also must make sure you have at least a 2.5, for most a 2.75, sometimes a 3.0 GPA in your major and overall, your cumulative GPA. You can see on this slide where exactly your major falls. If it's not listed on there, then that means it's the 2.5. You also have to make sure that you are making satisfactory progress toward completion of your general education core requirements. That doesn't mean that you have to have them all completed before you apply for admission. Instead, it's just to make sure that you're on track to be able to graduate on time based on the coursework that you've already taken. Additionally, you have to submit a form to release for a background check. This requires a $25 fee, and the form can be obtained from the Teachers Academy office. This must be submitted prior to admission to teacher education, prior to the first internship. This has to be completed in order for you to go into the schools to intern, and is also a requirement for you to be licensed to teach in North Carolina. This release will allow the Teachers Academy to receive your previous background check as well as updates of anything that may occur while you are a student here at UNCG. If there's anything in your background that you're concerned about being a hindrance toward your ability to intern and eventually get teaching licensure, you probably want to meet with Dr. Betty Panchin in the Teachers Academy. She's the Associate Dean, and you can talk with her about your situation, and she can give you a sense based on her expertise whether or not you would find any barriers to licensure or to your internships. In addition to the release for background check, you will also receive a recommendation from your major school or department on the application. This is not something that has to be obtained prior to submitting the application. As I mentioned before, this will occur in that section that says to be completed by the Teachers Academy. So essentially, the representative from your major department will just be signing off that yes, you have the minimum GPA requirements, yes, you have the minimum praxis requirement or exemption, and that yes, you're making satisfactory progress toward completion of your coursework. In order to apply for admission, you will submit your application to the Teachers Academy, as you've heard me mention many times. The Teachers Academy is essentially the administrative unit in the School of Education that works with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on licensure processing. So they ensure that all education programs on campus are meeting the state's minimum requirements for licensure, and they also assist students in receiving their license. This application, again, may be found online or obtained from the Teachers Academy office and will need to be submitted to Carol Walker Resch in the Teachers Academy office, which is located at 324B Curry. In addition to submitting the application, you will also want to turn in a copy of your detailed degree evaluation. So just print off a copy from UNCG. Additionally, if you have to take the Praxis 2, or the Praxis 1, you will need to print off a copy of your Praxis 1 scores from the online account that you will create when you register for the exam. That's where they'll post your scores instead of mailing them. So print off a copy of your Praxis 1 scores. If you're exempt from the Praxis 1 based on your SAT or ACT scores, it's preferable that you obtain a copy of your SAT scores or ACT scores to also submit with the application. For some students, we're able to look up those scores in the computer system, and so a copy is not necessary. For others, they're not listed in the computer system, and so a copy would be necessary for exemption. If you're unsure which category you fall into, it's just better to go ahead and submit a copy of your scores. If you can't find a copy of your scores, be in touch with me and we'll talk about your options.